Extraordinary until proven otherwise. LEMMINO. Big boy. We haven't watched a video from LEMMINO since we watched DB Cooper, so it should be fun.
Just let me know.
What is this? AC-130? UFO. You believe in UFOs, Anasta?
In early 2007, this silent black and white video was uploaded by a user on a conspiracy and UFO-centric forum called Above Top Secret. The user claimed the video depicted a disc-shaped UFO outmaneuvering a fighter jet somewhere off the coast of Mexico in the mid-2000s. They had supposedly gained access to the video while serving on board a US aircraft carrier and claimed to have smuggled the potentially classified material off the ship. Whilst
you believe in UFOs? Anasta says yes. Personally, I just think it's people seeing shit like planes or maybe a bird or some shit, dude, or just some light, and then they just misconstrue it, because when it's dark you can never really identify what it is, bro. Like, and when you're on edge at night in the dark, shit is 10 times worse. So you think you see goddamn Bigfoot in the trees when really it's just a random monkey or random dude just fucking walking around in the forest. I don't know why he's in the forest, but you know what I mean? Like, it's stingy. Like, that's just how it is. Your mind just creates stuff. I think because the universe is infinite, there are aliens, so technically, I mean, I think there's aliens, probably. Like, it would make sense, mathematically speaking. But, like, UFOs, I mean, unidentified flying objects could just be military vehicles and stuff, dude. I don't know about it being aliens inside the vehicles, though.
some members of the forum chose to believe their story, others were not so easy.
Hosted by ignorant
For instance,
ape.
the video was hosted on a website belonging to a group of German film students, which led some to denounce the clip as an attempted hoax. Even those who believed it could be genuine still complained that it was a totally uninspiring video of a fuzzy dot.
Of course, dude. The haters will hate, dude. What'd you expect?
Over a decade later, this long-forgotten video suddenly resurfaced as part of an article by the New York Times. The video was now linked to a secret government-funded program and was even corroborated by a credible eyewitness. What had initially been dismissed as a hoax turned out to be real. The video was said to depict a genuine encounter between US Navy fighter jets and some sort of unidentified craft.
That's interesting. Don't know if
A second
I
black
believe
and
that,
white
though.
video of a similar yet completely separate incident was also featured at the beginning of the article, except this one had sound.
Dude, there's a drone, bro.
Drone, bro.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Also, what is this? This is like a plane of some sort? Like a surveillance plane, dude? Because that audio, if that's like army people looking down at that don't really sound like what they would sound like, in my humble opinion. But
These two videos, along with a third released a few months later, spread across the internet like wildfire. Comment sections and discussion threads were dominated by unrestrained speculation about aliens and paranormal phenomena. The skeptics meanwhile took it upon themselves to analyze every pixel in every frame in the hopes of uncovering some
It's
neglected
legit,
clue that
dude.
could identify these fuzzy blobs. Any lingering doubts about the video's authenticity vanished with the release of an official statement by the Department of Defense confirming that the videos depicted real events involving unidentified aerial phenomena. So, what exactly are we looking at?
I mean, it's just thermal cams, though, no? Like, a lot of things show up on a thermal camera, though, right? I'm assuming that's a thermal camera. It looks like you're like, bruh, how many things show up? A lot. I don't know if that's a fucking, like, UFO in terms of UFO, like people would think. But I'm more skeptical than most, I guess. I don't know. No. The USS
The first
Nimitz
video was recorded off the
encounters.
northwestern coast of Mexico in late 2004. The story behind it has been recounted by more than a dozen naval officers, and it goes like this. In early November of 2004, a naval strike group led by the aircraft carrier the USS Nimitz was conducting pre-deployment exercises about 100 kilometers southwest of San Diego. Starting around the 10th of November, radar technicians aboard a guided missile cruiser, the USS Princeton, were puzzled by a series of unidentified radar tracks near San Clemente Island. The tracks did not resemble any known aircraft and would sporadically appear in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. Suspecting a malfunction of some sort, the recently upgraded Spy-1 radar system was taken offline and recalibrated. Once the system was brought back online, however, the tracks had only become sharper. Among those on board were Senior Chief Operations Specialist Kevin Day, who was an expert on the Spy-1 radar system and had 18 years worth of experience at the time of the incident.
Don't tell me this guy doesn't kind of look like one of them conspiracy theorists, low-key, a little bit. Okay, so they thought their equipment was malfunctioning, and they reset it, and then it just was there, stronger. Like the signal of these things, alright.
Day observed firsthand how these unknown targets alternated between slightly strange and physics-defying maneuvers. Sometimes a cluster of tracks would appear out of nowhere and slowly drift south. They were flying too high to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and did not follow any commercial airways. Other times they would seemingly descend from space and drop all the way down to sea level in mere seconds. These phenomena continued for several days, and every time they reappeared, the crew would run up to the bridge and use a pair of heavily magnified binoculars to see these tiny specks moving erratically in the distance. On the morning of November the 14th, the crew on board the USS Nimitz were gearing up for a scheduled air defense exercise. They had not yet been informed of the unusual returns picked up by the Princeton. It was a cloudless day, and the sea was calm as pilots took to the skies.
This might be a relevant question, but how long are those aircraft carriers? Because you have to, like, land a jet on that shit. So it must be pretty fucking big. Like, real big. If they have, like, a full runway on there.
One of them was Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Kurth, who was flying a single-seat FA-18 fighter jet when he was contacted by the Princeton. He was instructed to investigate an unknown target approaching from the south. The Princeton also wanted to know if he carried any weapons, to which the answer was no. Kurth made his way to the specified coordinates but did not pick up anything on sensors. As he looked down towards the ocean, however, his attention was immediately drawn towards a turbulent patch of water. Kurth claims to have seen a roundish disturbance on the ocean, which appeared as though something was submerged just below the surface. It reminded him of a submarine or ship slowly sinking into the ocean. The Nimitz...
Don't air jet pilots have, like, oxygen masks on? Because they go so quick and they go so high. I don't know, man. Like, can't you, like, isn't there very little margin for error? Can't you easily hallucinate and stuff in there, get, like, knocked out and shit? Like, just pass out from, like, the G-force? I mean, they're obviously specially trained, but surely that's a possibility. Surely he might be seeing things, though. I mean, that should be being as skeptical as possible. You know what I mean? Plus, he's going so fast. I don't know, dude. It just seems a bit odd.
Strike group did include a nuclear-powered submarine named the USS Louisville. The Louisville was in the vicinity when Kurth made his observations, so the churning may indeed have been caused by a submerging submarine. If not, then whatever was in the water managed to evade detection by the Louisville's extremely sensitive sonar.
Do people get seasick on submarines?
By a squadron of...
This popped into my head, dude. I know it's a weird question, right? Do people get seasick on submarines like they do on boats? Because that ship move like rock as well. I'd assume it would, but I don't know.
Sensitive sonar. Kurth was soon joined by a squadron of 2 tandem-seated F-18s, the lead aircraft of which was piloted by Commander David Fravor. Much like Kurth, Fravor claims to have seen a disturbance on the ocean, which he described as having a vaguely cross-like shape. He thought it resembled a downed airliner and described its size as much larger than a submarine. While Kurth eventually circled back for the Nimitz, Fravor and his wingman decided to get a closer look. As they began their descent, they noticed a white, capsule-shaped craft moving erratically above the disturbance. At first, they thought it could be a helicopter, but there were no rotor blades. In fact, it was perfectly smooth. No markings, no exhaust, no protrusions of any kind. The UFO appeared to maintain a consistent altitude, but made rapid lateral movements with no visible means of propulsion. According to Fravor, it was a bit smaller than an F-18 and resembled a giant mint of Tic Tac. As Fravor continued to descend, his wingman decided to maintain altitude and kept watching from above. Flying in a spiraling downward motion, Fravor was getting closer and closer until suddenly the UFO realigned its axis and began to climb at an incredible rate of speed. Both of them were now flying in a circle. The UFO was coming up while the F-18 was going down. In an effort to close the distance between them, Fravor made a final aggressive turn before the UFO rapidly accelerated up to hypersonic speed and disappeared in a matter of seconds.
See, that's sus, dude.
As they looked down towards the ocean, it was now perfectly calm.
That's sus, dude.
Okay, but what?
Like, it makes zero sense, right? And I know if you're that advanced that you go get picked up on radar, the alien physics are probably very different to our physics, right? Because technically we make the laws of physics, I guess. Not like it's there, but like we interpret it in that way. Surely other people could have had, like, if you have different types of technology, you know, you could mess around with it a little bit, I guess. But still, it comes and seems a bit far-fetched, dude. That is a fucking tic-tac, dude. I know the technology could be so advanced, but surely if the technology is so advanced, you wouldn't even be able to see that shit, dude. That's my issue. Like, why is it so advanced to a point, and then not advanced enough? Like, it's a bit odd. You know, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, boys, but like, yeah.
What about the video? Well, so Fravor and his wingman made it back to the Nimitz. They landed and ran into a different flight crew preparing to head back out. They told them what they had seen and to be on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary. Soon thereafter, another tandem-seated F-18 took to the skies. This time, it was outfitted with an advanced targeting forward-looking infrared camera system. This at-flare pod is controlled by the weapons systems operator seated behind the pilot, and the backseater of this flight was Lieutenant Chad Underwood. A few minutes after departing the Nimitz, Underwood detected something on his radar. The unknown target was directly ahead, a few tens of kilometers away. The target's behavior was erratic and unpredictable. Its altitude and airspeed were in constant flux. According to Underwood, it simply did not abide by the known laws of physics. At some point, Underwood managed to get a lock on the target with the at-flare camera, and this is when the much publicized video was recorded. At the beginning of the video, we see a UFO being tracked in infrared. Underwood then switches to visible light, revealing an out-of-focus rounded mass in the distance. He then switches back to infrared and alternates between two different zoom levels on multiple occasions. Not much happens until the very end of the video, when the UFO suddenly disappears off to the left-hand side of the screen. As the target was too far away to be seen with the naked eye, neither Underwood nor his pilot ever made visual contact.
See, that's sus,
dude. The Princeton continued to detect anomalous radar tracks for at least 2 more days, and according to Senior Chief Day, they eventually disappeared near the Mexican island of Guadalupe.
Interesting. You see, like, it feels just like they give us enough info so it's skeptical. They never confirm, like, there's not enough info to confirm it, and there's not enough info to deny it. And that's why I fucking hate. That's why I don't get into this shit, dude. Conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I don't get into it because I like knowing the outcome, if you get what I mean. And when I don't read mystery books and stuff like that. I hate cliffhangers. I like knowing what happens, dude. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna invest time into it.
In complete isolation, utterly divorced from any and all surrounding context, this video is extraordinarily unremarkable.
True.
It's a fuzzy blob against a featureless background. It's only when you place it in the middle of these truly remarkable stories that the video itself becomes remarkable.
Agreed.
When skeptics and debunkers claim that this is a distant airplane, I understand why many are so opposed to that explanation, because the witness accounts say otherwise. A distant airplane can't just zip around the sky as if gravity was non-existent. It doesn't make any sense. Unfortunately, we don't see any of those physics-defying maneuvers in the video. In fact, this fuzzy blob does not do much of anything until the very end, when it suddenly disappears off to the left-hand side of the screen.
You know what it looks like? I don't know if anyone's ever gone into a microscope, like looked in a microscope, and you look at like those bugs under the microscope and they move around. That's what it looks like. And like someone put this camera overlay on it. That's what it looks like to me. Like an electron microscope
this is due to
or some
a
shit.
sudden acceleration by the UFO, but it could also be something as simple as the camera losing its target lock.
True.
It's difficult to tell. Underwood himself is uncertain about what happens at the end, as he never made visual contact. The witness accounts, meanwhile, are so extraordinary they are difficult to believe. If any regular person claimed to have seen a tic-tac-shaped UFO moving erratically in the sky, a few would listen. But when that same story is told by some of the most qualified observers on the planet, it makes you wonder. And it wasn't just one or two. These UFOs were either seen or tracked by dozens of experienced aviators and sailors for nearly a week. They were seen from multiple vantage points and tracked by one of the most sophisticated radar systems in the world. To think that all of them are lying or all of them were deceived by some prosaic phenomena seems absurd. At the same time, there is no way to verify what they're saying. We have no choice but to take them at their word. We don't have the radar data, the radio communication logs, nor any corroborating evidence. Well, except for this pixel-deficient footage, I guess. Some of the witnesses claim there was actually a much longer and much higher resolution video than the one we see today. They claim to have seen this video on board the Princeton, and that the shape of the UFO was perfectly clear as it violently maneuvered around the screen. What's interesting about this claim is that when the video was first leaked online back in 2007, the anonymous leaker claimed they had 4 different versions of the video in their possession. 2 of them were said to be shorter, but the 4th was said to be twice as long and supposedly showed more UFO movement.
See, my problem with that is why the fuck would you not post all 4? Why wouldn't you? I have 4 versions of this video. Big man, if you really think it's a UFO, you would post all the evidence. Like, just think about it logically, bro. If you have evidence of something, you're not gonna be like holding it and posting it one at a time, dude, unless you're trying to blackmail somebody, dude. You know what I mean? Like, look, I have evidence, and then like in the movies where you send one picture at a time just to give them the message or some shit, dude. Like, I find it hard to believe.
Fortunately, this extended version has never seen the light of day.
Exactly.
And if some of the witnesses
they
are
got him,
believed,
dude,
it likely never will. You see, on the evening of November the 14th, all the footage and data from these events were supposedly erased. Witnesses claim that 2 men arrived via helicopter who then collected the relevant data before having all the tapes and hard drives wiped clean. Witnesses from both the Nimitz and Princeton recall such a visit and insist that nothing like it had ever happened before.
It was the aliens, dude. They disguised themselves as the heli.
To speculations of some sort of cover-up, that these sightings were that of top-secret military drones or aircraft. While the US military is undoubtedly experimenting with all kinds of cutting-edge technology, it is difficult to believe they possess gravity-defying, hypersonic flying tic-tacs. If so, they would possess technology so far beyond anything known to the public, it would be akin to magic. And this was back in 2004. Don't get me wrong, 2004 was a magical time compared to
current year.
But it was still aggressively 2004.
Flat ball from a disc to a ball right before your eyes. Catch it.
Bro, I was 6 in 2004, dude. I
really don't know what to make of this story.
I was this dude.
Watching and listening to so many interviews with the people who were there, I'm left with a distinct impression that they're telling the truth. The video, on the other hand, does little to support their claims. Sure, this fuzzy blob may be unidentified, but it's not unexplainable.
UFOs is a bunch of circumstantial evidence, dude. Like, there's just so much anecdotal evidence, dude. Like, no one ever has any proof. And that's what annoys, like, that's the problem. Like, if you have one shred of proof, dude, it's a bit weird. And then now we have the whole military have come and yoinked the stuff, you know? That's what I said.
The second and third videos were recorded off the southeastern coast of the United States in early 2015. While those who recorded the footage have yet to come forward, some of their crewmates and fellow pilots have. And according to them, the story goes like this. In the summer of 2014, a naval strike group led by the aircraft carrier the USS Theodore Roosevelt was conducting pre-deployment exercises somewhere off the coast of Virginia. Much like with the Nimitz encounters, the first sign of trouble came in the form of anomalous radar tracks. Following a fleet-wide upgrade of aircraft radar systems, pilots had begun to pick up unidentified targets while conducting routine training missions. The tracks were initially dismissed as false positives, but their behavior was unlike anything they had seen before. Gravity-defying maneuvers, hypersonic velocities, and other mystifying shenanigans. Attempts to intercept these UFOs were initially unsuccessful. Lieutenant Danny Acoin claims that on 2 separate occasions he tried but failed to make visual contact. Then, one day, a squadron is said to have narrowly avoided a mid-air collision with one of these UFOs. The 2 jets had been flying in tandem, no more than a few tens of meters apart, when something flew right in between them. That something was oddly described as a cube encased by a translucent sphere.
Flying cube,
Graves,
dude.
who spoke to one of the pilots once they had landed, claims the experience had visibly spooked them. So much so, the squadron filed an official safety report. According to Graves, this was far from an isolated incident. These UFOs were allegedly seen by dozens of pilots for several months and could remain airborne for up to 12 hours at a time. Yet, despite growing concerns among the Roosevelt crew, training missions continued as if nothing was amiss. By early 2015, the Roosevelt strike group had made its way down to the coast of Florida, which is when the 2 now famous videos were recorded.
That's also my problem, dude. If they were really worried about these things, then why wouldn't they do something about it? Why would they keep it a secret? That's my issue. And then people would say, no, to scare everyone. I mean, to be fair, that's a great point now after COVID, dude.
Both of which are said to be short clips taken from much longer and higher resolution footage. We don't know much about the circumstances as the officers involved have chosen to remain silent, but let's take a look at the first one.
Dude, there's a drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
So, there are a few things to unpack in this one.
That was some SCP shit, guys. But as soon as he said, that's not what? Blanked. Alright, dude. That's not blanked. Anyway, let's continue, boys.
If we ignore the audio for a moment and focus solely on the visuals, the thing that immediately stands out is the apparent rotation of the UFO. I use the word apparent because some debunkers claim that this rotation is an optical illusion. You see, the Atflare pod is equipped with something known as a derotation mechanism. It's meant to counteract the rotation of the camera so that the orientation of the image stays the same, also known as image stabilization. What may not be stabilized, however, are certain artifacts produced by the lens of the camera.
This is beyond my
expertise. You can even try this
expertise.
yourself. Aim a camera towards a light source, rotate the camera, stabilize the footage, and there you go. The orientation of the image is preserved while these spokes of light rotate along with the camera. So much like how the light from this light bulb is producing a lens flare, the infrared radiation from this UFO is said to be producing a lens glare.
Is there actually professional debunkers of this shit, dude? I feel like there is. Like, didn't he say, I feel like there's probably podcasts and shit of people debunking this stuff. I feel like that would be fun to watch.
In other words, debunkers claim it is the camera and thereby the glare which is rotating, not the UFO itself.
Okay.
While this explanation seems perfectly reasonable to my untrained eyes, things get a bit more confusing once we bring back the audio.
Well, if there's like a thing, it's rotating.
If this rotation is merely the result of image stabilization, why would the two pilots fail to recognize it as such?
Dude, you're gonna give me
Surely
motion sickness.
they, if anyone, would know what that looks like.
It looks like
They're not alone. Both Lieutenant
What's
Graves
that
and
thing
the
called?
coin believe it is a
Spinning top.
UFO which is rotating. Furthermore, an expert on the ATFLIR system has very plainly stated that this is not an optical illusion. But
This video was approved by the US government, so it's kind of hard to debunk. A lot of things are approved by governments, my guy. Don't mean it's true. Like, let's not go there, but like, this is their guys. You think they're gonna throw their fucking military under the bus? And be like, yeah, they don't know what they're doing, bro. This didn't happen. Like, they're not gonna throw the military under the bus, dude. Like, you have to think about that. You act like the government haven't lied before. Like, come on.
this is not the only puzzling comment made by the two pilots.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west.
So the radar is supposedly detecting a whole fleet of UFOs, which are all traveling crosswind. I mean, if what we're looking at is something prosaic, like the blooming exhaust of a jet engine, these comments don't make a whole lot of sense. I would love to hear what these two pilots have to say if they ever decide to come forward.
It's also sus that they won't speak.
All we can do is speculate.
It's also sus that they won't say anything, even anonymously, dude.
Nickel 6-1 Tango, small J
One did speak on Joe Rogan. One of these two guys.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
This video may seem very
Then why did he say they
striking
didn't
at
speak then?
first, but it is arguably the least interesting of the three.
I agree.
Once again, let's ignore the audio for a moment and focus solely on the visuals.
That's really small.
Unlike the previous two, the UFO in this one is colder than its surroundings, so the ocean below is radiating more heat than whatever this is. It may look as though the UFO is traveling at high speed, but this is likely the result of parallax.
Yeah.
In short, aircraft go fast, camera fixed on not so fast UFO appear to go fast.
Is that like when you're on a train and the trains go like past each other and it looks like they're going fucking really fast? Or the other one is?
Some say the UFO is near sea level and therefore the parallax explanation doesn't work, but we can actually derive its altitude using the numbers on screen and find that that is not true. Everything seen in this video is consistent with a balloon or some sort of debris floating in the wind. The
Fair
commentary
enough.
by the pilots, however, does once again introduce a bit of confusion. I mean, it seems
If they're not
odd for the
visual,
pilots to be so excited over something so mundane, but without hearing from the pilots themselves, we can do nothing but speculate.
That's true. I was gonna say, like, if they don't have visual on it, because like the other guys didn't actually see the object, they just saw the camera. But like, if these guys saw what the actual object is, and I'm gonna assume they didn't actually see what it was, they just saw something flying on the radar thing. I mean, I'm assuming they've seen like weather balloons and whatever else, drones before, right? So that's what kind of makes it odd. But like, the explanation is, it feels like it is kind of easier to debunk this one, you know. And we're about to get an ad. Alright. Chapter 3.
The person responsible for making these videos available to the public is a man named Lou Elizondo. Beginning in 2008, Elizondo was the head of a secret government-funded effort to investigate UFO sightings known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. By late 2017, however, Elizondo had grown so disillusioned with the government's lack of interest in the program's efforts that he decided to resign. In his resignation letter, Elizondo writes that certain individuals within the government are staunchly opposed to UFO research, that inflexible mindsets and political contention essentially prevented him from doing his job. He portrays the government as virtually unconcerned about an issue which he believes could pose a threat to national security, so much so that he felt it necessary to resign in protest. This seemingly uncaring attitude was also noted by witnesses of both the Nimitz and Roosevelt encounters.
Just want to say, has resigning in protest ever fucking worked? All you're doing is losing your job. And if you're like seemingly the only one that is kind of going against the grain, they want you to leave. So really they don't care. So unless you kind of have a big following behind you already that are on your side, like resigning doesn't mean shit. Like...
For instance, Lieutenant Ryan Graves recalled how the commander of the Roosevelt strike group seemed completely unfazed by this video. On the day when it was captured, he supposedly looked at it for 5 seconds, then walked away without saying a word. Some of the senior officers on board the Nimitz and Princeton are said to have had an equally muted response. These are very bizarre reactions to potential airspace incursions. You'd think they'd want to make sure these UFOs are not some kind of threat. The near mid-air collision reported by one of the squadrons from the Roosevelt seems especially concerning.
Yep.
To account for this apparent disinterest, many point to the severe stigma surrounding the topic of UFOs. Regardless of how inaccurate it may be, the term UFO has, for many, become synonymous with aliens and spaceships. So much so, the government now favors the term UAP, specifically to avoid this unwanted association. Whether sightings go unreported or uninvestigated, the argument is that people choose to look the other way because they're concerned about their reputation. No one wants to be seen as a nutcase and potentially lose out on a promotion.
It's true, they do seem crazy. If you say anything about aliens, everyone goes, oh, really, dude? You're that guy? Yo, that guy did. I think that's with any conspiracy theory. You ever try and talk about it, they go, really? Yo, that guy? You that guy who believes in Bigfoot, dude? Yeah, you that guy who believes in Loch Ness Monster, dude?
Others believe there could be something a bit more conniving at play, that no serious action is taken because a highly advanced and top-secret drone program is responsible for the sightings.
I thought he was going to say there was like fucking highly advanced beings in the government for a minute. I was about to laugh.
Even some of the witnesses have entertained that possibility. For instance, Sean Cahill, who was the chief master at arms on board the Princeton, perceived the inaction of senior staff as a clear sign that the UFOs were known military assets. But as previously mentioned, it is difficult to believe such radical innovation could have taken place in absolute secrecy.
True.
We're talking about such advanced technology, it would barely make sense in a science fiction novel. Vehicles that can exceed the speed of sound without producing any sonic booms. Vehicles that can drop or climb to virtually any altitude in a matter of seconds. Vehicles that can violently change direction of travel as if inertia was a mere suggestion.
Looks like one of them scanner
None
things.
of that should be possible, yet dozens of trained observers claim they witnessed the impossible.
Not enough.
The least uncomfortable solution, therefore, is to simply not believe them. Sure, the witnesses are credible, but they're not incontrovertible. Everything from optical illusions to faulty equipment could be used to cast doubt on their extraordinary tales. And without any corroborating evidence, except for this nebulous footage, that is not a difficult task. As such, many government officials may not seem concerned because they genuinely believe there is nothing to be concerned about.
Fair enough. You know, that is kind of true. Maybe the aliens made contact with them, dude. I don't know. I feel like if you have that technology, you could just take us over. Why would they just fly the fuck around the planet doing random shit? It makes no sense. Or they're researching. Well, if they can make aircrafts that advanced, surely they have like a fucking scan thing. They can scan our fucking planet and see what the fuck is on there, dude. I don't know. Also, I feel like goddamn greenskins. Also, I feel like on both sides, there's like super fucking alien activist guys who are like, yeah, there's 100% this is UFO, this, and then you have like the opposite side, which are super fucking skeptics that will discredit every fucking video, dude. Like, it's weird. And I think like when you watch podcasts, like I know you just linked me the Joe Rogan one. Like I watched one about UFOs that he done, and like one was with a super skeptic, and I watched one with one of the alien guys, and like it's just weird how they both don't really consider the opposite side. You know what I mean?
Personally, I'm left feeling very conflicted.
True.
On the one hand, I find the witness accounts quite compelling. On the other, I find this grainy trilogy of dots in the sky somewhat underwhelming.
Yeah.
Sure, the videos are fascinating, but they're also far too ambiguous to provide any decisive answers.
And that's why.
I highly recommend that you seek out and listen to some of the witness accounts so that you can judge for yourself. This is very much a developing situation. By the time you watch this video, chances are more information will have been released. According to Elizondo, the Nimitz and Roosevelt encounters are just the tip of the iceberg. Sightings by military personnel are said to be commonplace, it's just that we rarely hear about them. I can only hope that more evidence is released in the near future, and that at least one video depicts something inexplicable. Something that is unidentified because it defies explanation, not because it's too distant, too small, or otherwise too obscure. No, but something truly extraordinary. That's what I want to see.
Same, bro. Like I said, that's why I don't get in to this stuff, because it's just all either there's not, the evidence is kind of underwhelming, right? Or like it's just debunkable, you know what I mean? And you never know, right? Like you're torn in the middle, like yeah, sure, that could be it, but like only a few, let's say 20-30 people saw that shit. Like that's not enough people to convince me. Like if 100,000 people saw that shit, then like it's more undeniable. You know what I mean? It's kind of odd. It's kind of odd, you know? I don't know, bro. I ain't. That's why I'm not making these videos, because I'm a bit of a moron.